Hello, everyone. Welcome or welcome back to the Venusian Essence podcast. I am your host, Venus, and I have a very, very special guest with me today, Amanda Baker. I've met Amanda on a very special container, Tarot Intuition Mastery with Cassandra, and we connected so deeply during that time together. And I am so fascinated with you just as a being for your raw, untamed authenticity and just the way that you express yourself as your true way of being. And Amanda is such an incredible poet. Your words are so inspiring. And I was like, I want to bring you on because I know that you and I have this in common. And like, you're just the kind of person that when I listen to you talk and when I read your text, you just have this energy of like bringing us really into the depths and like into the unfiltered parts of ourselves. Yeah, I'm so honored to have you here with me today and to explore whatever comes through during this open channel space. And I'm gonna pass the mic down to you to introduce yourself to the community.
Thank you. Thank you, Venus. Yeah, I am really excited to be here and was honored when you reached out and invited me really to have a conversation, especially because we were a part of the exchanges in the group chat and through the live video offerings that were done, that we really haven't had too much time to talk one-on-one. And so even though this is being recorded here for others to listen to me, it's really more about the space between you and I and what we connect on and what we create that comes about being here together in time, despite the physical space and barriers, right? We have technology as a way for us to be here together. And yeah, thank you for sharing about what you see and feel from me in terms of my depth, the expressiveness, my poetry. I'm also a mental health therapist or clinician, a yoga instructor. Even though all of that can be a part of my identity or labels in the work that I do, ultimately what is most true, where I'm most passionate about is the heart of things, really connecting on the heart level, coming into that self-trust, supporting people in being present and feeling safe and confident, intuitive within themselves to live out, their wildest dreams or most fulfilling life.
Yeah, I know. I feel that. I feel the essence of you, and it's just so beautiful. Like I said, it's inviting. And that's why I wanted to have a conversation with you. I thought we would dive into the topic of, being your most authentic, most unfiltered self. And a lot of people actually have a hard time being in that space, like this very raw, tender space, and not just like for a fleeting moment. Like, really, as something to embody in our day to day life, and really how we can get into this space of acceptance of all the parts of ourselves, the shadow, the good, and the bad. And I wanted to ask you, in those moments where you feel the most messy, you feel the most tender, you feel the most seen, like exposed, how do you hold yourself in that kind of moment?
Beautiful, beautiful question. And so fitting you use the word messy. I sometimes will say that your mess is your message. And I use that for myself, that my messiness is the message in terms of what I show in my day-to-day life, whether that's seen online on social media or seen by the people that I'm with presently or physically, or even when I'm by myself, is there's something of value there. And I think often people are scared to be unfiltered or scared to live more openly in the moment because we have a lot of conditioning around how to be, who to be, what's acceptable and what's not. And so, and I grew up in that way too, of like, this is right, this is wrong, this is what's socially acceptable, and this is what's not, or this is what's polite, and this is what's impolite. Don't be this way, be that way, because this way of being is punished or scrutinized or can lead to rejection or abandonment. And getting those messages was, which is supposed to be maybe more clean, more orderly, really led me to hide parts of myself. And it's been through my own journey or life path and development to give myself that permission. I don't think it's anybody else's permission. It's my own permission to remember who I've always been, and that was through poetry. That was through dance. That's where the yoga came. That was through my fascination and love for magic and witchcraft. And that's what I think our intuition is for people. Our skills and our talents is the magic. And the more that I've come to show it, even when it's been scary or tender, because some people might judge it, I've had to utilize my own capacity to be with that discomfort, a fear, discomfort, a tension, oh no, like that person might not like you, or that person might judge you. And that was connected with that fear of being seen or potential rejection, right? If they don't like me, then others won't like me, then no one will like me. I'll be alone. And if I'm alone, I'm worthless, I'm purposeless, I don't exist, I die, right? It's like if we take it all the way down through those to the core, it's that fear of no purpose, worthlessness, not existing. And so I had to push into that. So I would write poetry. If nobody reads my words, do I not exist? I have to give myself my purpose. I have to also like what I write. I also need to love what I love. So there's this whole other layer of awareness of, am I judging myself? Have I been my own critic? Have I rejected my parts of self? And I did. And so when I took that accountability, when I went through forgiveness and continue to do so, I create that space in myself to be with that pain, whether it's by myself as I'm going through it or sharing with another, noticing where I feel it in my body and allowing it, moving through it, and then having the courage to continue to show up and share.
Wow, so beautiful. I was feeling everything when you were talking. And you almost brought me into, I was getting flashbacks of I'm very psychic in that sense, but I was seeing myself as a teenager. I feel like you touched those parts of me while you were talking.
Mm.
And
Mm.
like, yeah. And right now, I was sharing with you before we started recording that, like, I feel like I always sync up with whatever I'm about to create. And before this, as I'm recording this, even, I am in this space of feeling that tenderness myself. And a past version of me would have been like intimidated and scared to show up on a podcast recording or on a conversation with someone, knowing that I'm going to be seen by others. I'd be like, no, I have to be feeling perfect in order to show up. But I'm feeling the complete opposite of that. Even though who's to say what being perfect is, right? It's like you said, it's these projections of the adults and the people around us that convinced us that this is how you need to look like and this is how you need to speak, and it shows up differently for all of us. But for me, there was a lot around this specifically. So being too sensitive. I remember having a family member, my aunt, who, whenever she would come to visit, I would have this like heightened experience of being so emotional. I was about to share about it, and I had a realization that actually what was happening is that every single time that my aunt would come in, I was an empath. So I was picking up on her stuff. I would just become too emotional, and then she would scold me for it. She would be like, you're too sensitive. You're ruining everything for us. I felt like I needed to fix something about myself. So I need to stop being emotional. But then, like, even that put the extra pressure on me to feel even more emotional. Like, I felt super constricted and like, how do I act right now? And so many other memories like that, where I have internalized the belief that being in this space of rawness and having or expressing emotion is dangerous, it's annoying for people, I'm gonna be unlovable, and it's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's so beautiful when you finally allow yourself, like you said, you give yourself the permission. It's like I re-granted myself the permission that I get to be me in all of my colors, not just when it's like all pink and rainbows and beautiful, but even when it's these dark spaces and the deep this deep rawness of being. And for me, it's just to be with it and to show up even while I'm in it. So for you, it was poetry. For me, it's content creation. I love creating content, and creativity can be such an alchemical art. And I discovered that whenever I would like take my phone or start recording something when I am in this space, that it helps me move through it. And then I also find this place where the most divine guidance starts to come through, actually. And I feel my spirit team and this like unconditional love encompassing me, because it's through the darkness that we reconnect with the light, right?
Yes. And it's so beautiful how you transmute, right? The feeling
Mm.
into creativity, into creation. And through that process is where you feel more connected. The unconditional love comes in, and then you receive the guidance, the wisdom, the messages really within your abilities. What stood out though the most from what you just shared was that realization that came through, you said, with your aunt, and you were picking up on her emotions and then probably embodying that in the space. And then she was criticizing you for the way that you were showing up. And so in a way it shows she was criticizing, punishing, judging her own emotions, because you were mirroring to
Mm.
her what she
Mm.
really didn't like or wasn't facing within herself, and then got placed upon you. And as a kid, you wouldn't know that that's what was happening. So, of course, you personalized it and felt like, I need to hide myself or shut this down. That I had never thought about that before. And I can probably relate that to times in my life when I likely was picking up the energy or the emotions of other people in my surroundings. And then they made a comment that was more about them that I personalized to myself. And I think that's really powerful, and that others will relate to that as well.
Yeah, and randomly got this image. The other week, I was outside and like, the universe was just kept mirroring this to me. I kept encountering like parent to child scenarios where the parent was screaming at the child, and I was like, what's going on? Like, this woman was screaming at her little kid, being like, I've had such a busy week at work and I've come here to calm myself, and you're just being like, she was just projecting everything onto her kid. And yeah, you can probably like recall memories from your life where you've had that. And because I think it's a universal thing where children usually mirror back to us own inner children, especially when people are unconscious and they're not doing their work. But even if you're conscious and you are on the journey, life is always a mirror, and parents tend to project on their kids whatever they're carrying inside. And
Yes.
I remember that being an experience for me throughout my childhood, because I could pick up on everyone's emotions and energies. Like, in my physical experience growing up, that showed up for me as being like overweight. And when I got into my healing journey and I actually started to do the energetic emotional healing work, I had a drastic like weight loss. Like, I lost so much weight. I completely like transformed physically, even though
Yes.
my whole life I had been trying to lose weight, but I never
Yes.
was able to.
And I heard that from other people as well. And even for myself, not one that has really struggled much with weight, but when I really started getting into the deeper work, I started to get more like, and I wasn't working out regularly, I do yoga, but like getting more toned, and I still lost some weight. I felt like I lost inflammation. And so the benefits of the deeper inner work can show up, not just emotionally, not just in mindset, but within your body and within your external reality. The things that start to come up for you when you're really able to take in the things that are being reflected back to you, whether that's through relationships or your own self inquiry, shadow work, doing the readings, doing the meditations, feeling through the pain, I think really unlocks and opens up beyond just mental health symptoms or emotional improvements. But like you said, the other ways that you can start to feel better within yourself physically, emotionally, mentally, behaviorally.
Yeah, it's like this glow from the inside out,
Yeah.
basically.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's beautiful that we're touching on relationship too, whether that be with like children or our relationship with our family when we were children. Because one of the ways that we can be reflected back at these parts of ourselves that we were talking about, like the deepest, rawest, untamed parts of ourselves, is through a relationship. Usually that's when we get the most triggered in our shadows. And so we talked about how we can meet ourselves through it individually. So, how can we meet ourselves in it with another person? Because that can be even more challenging because now you get to meet yourself and you also get to meet the other person in that space. If we are not just about this and if we are not seeing the mirror and projecting on other, that's when relationships usually get messy and chaotic and there's like breakup, whether it's romantic or even for
Mhm.
friendship or like family dynamics. So how can we bring more like divine awareness into those spaces within ourselves and other, right?
Great question. And even I'm kind of pondering with that, and I'm still even pondering from what you shared too about the parent and child dynamics and what the child can show the parent if the parent is willing to self-reflect and have that conscious awareness. Even going with that example where the parent was yelling at the child and saying, I'm here in this space because I want to relax after a hard day of work, as if the child is preventing them from being able to relax, right? Putting that blame on the child for the parent's own difficulty with their own emotional regulation, you could say, emotional coping, just whatever word you want to use, stress management, or just recognition of how they're feeling. And instead of being with the emotion, I think, like you said, how do we bring about that conscious awareness into relationship? And a lot of it is pausing and being with yourself in the moment, though that's really hard and challenging because we get triggered, we get caught up in our unconscious patterns. I know for myself, I tend to be more of an anxious attachment, or I show up anxious in relationships, not just romantic, but also sometimes in deeper friendships or in my own relationship. I have an 8-year-old son. And I've seen it even with that, like my own anxiety of, does my son like me? And like, I know he loves me, but does he like me as a mom, as a person? He tends to prefer to want to play with his father over me. And I've recognized like my own tension that shows up sometimes in being like playful. And, I voice these things, or I promote authenticity and being playful and carefree. But when it comes to significant relationship, and this is my own inner work, and even being vulnerable, sharing here, that I've related this to being anxious in relationships, or you could say anxiously attached, and anxious attachment style is avoidance as well. So it's avoidance of self. So you're putting all of that energy or fulfillment, feelings that you want, the needs that need to be met on the other. So you're
Mm.
coming into that relationship hoping or believing that that other person is going to make you feel. And then when you don't, right, you're like, oh no, what's wrong with me? Or do they not like me anymore? What did I do wrong? When are they going to respond back? Or why did they cancel their plans? And so even my head is going with my son, like, why does he not want to play with me right now? Or why is he just reading his book and not having a conversation when I'm trying to have a conversation? Like, I'm replaying out as wild. And I'm really realizing this right now with you, Venus. I'm replaying this out, even with my kid, that anxiety coming in, which I could take that again as information about the other person. But it's really reflecting back my own level of intimacy with myself. Those same questions, does he like me? Why doesn't he want to play with me? To take that self inquiry of, well, are there things that I still don't like about myself? Or am I being harsh towards myself? Because again, those fears and my insecurities of being unlovable, not being liked, aren't true. They aren't true, like you said earlier. But do we still replay that, or not even replay? Are we still treating ourselves that way. And when we are, we're creating distance and not enhancing the intimacy, right? Because we think about intimacy as just being romantic or sexual. It's not. You have intimacy with yourself, with your child, with a friend, but especially with romantic partners, that avoidance of self is going to still lead to the disconnect or the less amount of intimacy, or if even indicative of a fear of intimacy between you and another.
Yeah, that was so deep. And so I had so much come up while you were talking. You were talking about your son. So I don't have a human son, but I do have cats. They've been such a great mirror and like teachers on my journey. And one of them, I have a cat who's like very independent. And yet, he loves me too and he likes me and I'm his favorite human in the house too. Like amongst my family because they're family cats, but I'm the one he's closest to. And lately, my reflections with my cat is it true that my cat needs me? And is it true that my cat only likes me? And is it true that my cat wouldn't be able to live without me? Or is it just me? Like when you were saying that we put that on the other person or cat in my experience, because it can be with our pets too. And I feel
Yes.
like if I was to like look from like a third person perspective, actually cats are inherently very independent. And also my cat is very independent and he doesn't really like need me. He's not needy and clingy like my two other cats.
Mm-hmm.
And yet he's like the one who's my favorite because he's the one who's like distant from me. And so my ego is like, I want to be needed. So I have this codependency of like, I want him to need me, you know?
Yes. Wow.
Yeah. And the truth is that like he does not. And I've just been projecting that. And it's me, like that there is a part of me that wants him to be clingy to me, that wants him to need me, because then I will feel more loved. And it's all an illusion, right?
It's an illusion. And that's so relevant, I think, as you said, like the ego, because even as you're saying that, and I'm doing this work around my son, is like I am so grateful for his relationship with his father and that he also enjoys playing or doing things on his own. And then there's something in me that's like, I feel left out, or I want him to want to play with me more. I want to be the favorite parent. And like that's very like human and in my ego, and I can be aware of that. But then I think sometimes that can take over, and you can, or I can try too hard, right? Because you want to be needed, you may be putting that energy, and that's leading to the cat to resist you more. If your energy is coming
Mm.
in, need me, then the cat might be like, no, I'm going to spend less time with you because it's creating that resistance.
Totally. Oh my God. I love that we're both being so transparent here and open, because the journey is not about like you just become perfect or you just suddenly know how to deal with these things. It's about walking the path. And I feel like the key here is that what we're doing is we're reflecting on how we are creating this instead of like projecting it onto like the other person. So the answer to that question, while we don't have all of the answers, but I feel like we have a good deal of understanding for it, which is that we need to exist in our own sphere of energy and we need to understand what's going on in our like creator field, in our like mental and emotional bodies, and really being in the state of reflection rather than like blaming the other person or trying to control the outcome. Like a shadow expression of like someone in your situation would be like, you would project that onto your son and be like, why do you like your father more? Why don't you play with me more? Am I a bad mom? Like, I've done all of this for you. Like, I can already hear examples of what I've heard before of parents being that way. And but the way that you heal this pattern for yourself and for your son, or this is just an example in any sort of relationship, is that we understand what's going on here. It's never about fixing ourselves, but holding ourselves again in that space of rawness and tenderness and accepting all the parts of ourselves and bringing in this like unconditional love
Mhm.
for the part of us that we were just talking about, like that part of me that's like, I want him to need me and I want him to love me, is ultimately whole from me to love me more,
Yes,
really.
exactly. That's where I was coming from, of like, am I showing up towards myself subconsciously with my own limited love? Am I not feeling the love here because I'm believing that it's expected or supposed to, or it needs to come from out there? And of like, oh, when I feel the love from my son, I'll feel it more in myself. Well, no, it's this feeling of love within me and having the compassion for yourself when you notice that you might have these negative thoughts or fears or projections onto others that can still happen. The most aware person can still fall into these like subconscious patterns, and when they do happen, to respond to yourself with that understanding and that compassion and that willingness to then ask yourself, how am I contributing to this dynamic? How am I contributing to this? Where do I have a role or even some influence to show up differently next time or in the future? And to have repair conversations if you do end up blaming the other person or being
Mm.
reactive, defensive. Again, we're not perfect, and it's not about fixing. It's growing and evolving and having the vulnerability and the courage to talk it out, to repair, to have conversations, take accountability.
Yeah, I love that because we are human and we are imperfect, and that is perfect. And what crossed my mind is this idea of how we keep transforming and shedding and rebirthing every
Mm-hmm.
single time that we do bring this compassion and awareness and new level of consciousness to our own being, especially in relationship, and how it's leading. Ultimately, we're talking here about the journey of coming back to like your most authentic expression, like the essence of who you are. And it's something that truly unfolds every single time that we make a different choice in these very situations. Because I do remember on the beginning of my journey, the thing that shifted everything for me was that I started to reflect on my reactions to my family members. So it was such a gift for me. So it was interesting. I'm going to share something so vulnerable here. I spent my whole life like wanting to escape my family in the metaphorical sense, but also in the literal sense, because basically I live in a culture where as women, we continue to live with our family until you get married. So I've lived with my family for a long time. I'm 23 years old right now. I'm still with my mom and my brother. And when I first got into like really exploring emotional healing and shadow work, I was 20 going to 21 years old. And so at that point, I made the decision to finally stop trying to escape home, escape my family. As I said, like metaphorically and also physically, like I wanted to get away. I didn't know it at the time because I was so lost and depressed and drowning deep in the everything that was going on for me. But it was in that space of like darkness. It's almost like my soul, a sparkle awakened within me. And I had this new level of awareness of like, could it be that maybe the answer is that I stop escaping, is that I stop trying to run away from them? Yeah, and I just started to spend a lot more time at home, a lot more time with family. And just seeing it, I shifted my perspective from it being a curse because it was so triggering for me to deal with any member of my family, so triggering. And I started to see it as a gift of like every single interaction with a family member from now on. I remember I had this journal and I would, like you said at the beginning of this, I would pause. So I would like step aside from whatever's
Mm-hmm.
going on and I would write down on my journal. And I would be like, okay, why did I just react that way? Why did what this person just said or did make me feel that way? And it was such a gift because it allowed me to dive so deep and understand so much about myself and get into the root cause of like what I was feeling and heal, like go to the deepest core wounds because they exist within family dynamics, especially like those people that we spent most of our lives with. So I feel like this would be such a beautiful tip and medicine for anyone who is having like a similar situation. Like, because I feel like a lot of the time we talk about like let go of this person, move on, like move them from cut your life. But sometimes the medicine actually lies in exploring this because our souls and our higher selves and like God did not place us in these situations for no reason. Obviously, like staying safe because situations differ, but you will know when someone is, it's like a curse that can be shifted into a blessing when you understand why it was there. Because in meeting those like darkest shadows of myself by exploring the dynamics with my family, that's when I met also the most powerful parts of myself. Because through those reflections, I would get into a conclusion of like, wait, so for example, I've been a people pleaser my whole life within my family. And like by exploring that and seeing where that started, I realized that like I had been blaming everyone outside of myself, but I always had the choice of saying no. I always had the choice of listening to myself. So within that, I understood that like, I get to just reclaim my power. I have the power of creating my own reality.
We do. We really do.
Hmm.
And that's incredible because you took those situations where you were being triggered and you made I call them sometimes like controllable doses where you're choosing to put yourself in a situation where you know that you are likely going to be triggered, but because you're choosing it, it creates a safer environment for yourself because of that level of autonomy and empowerment that you're giving to yourself by going into it from a place of, I do have some control, right? You have control of you and the intention behind it, your energy behind going into these spaces that maybe tend to be where you said triggering or negative. So from that, you're like, these triggers are going to show me something. These triggers are going to bring about wisdom or information, healing, and deeper information for yourself to then learn about you. That again, right? It's showing you something. And because you're choosing it, I feel like I say that that's that controllable dose that brings about transformation over time. And that's why I'm very much about relational healing or the value of relationships as being something very powerful for people's growth and improvements or well-being when you are conscious and going into it from that space. So having relationships, whether it's with your family or with a partner, or with in dating, with your children, as we've talked about, that's really bringing about where you get understanding from. If you're just healing by yourself, sitting on, a chair, a mat, doing meditations, but you're not having access to situations that are going to bring about like, well, why was I triggered? What was that about? If we're enclosed and not having opportunities to have different feelings, then we don't really have much to bring, whether to a therapist, a coach, a professional, or your own self-reflection. So I really commend you on making those choices and where I come from in terms of the value of relational healing and of authenticity, right? Like even me here talking about my personal life with my child as a mental health therapist, sharing some of those vulnerable, more personal things is not really done often, or there can be some controversy around it on whether it's ethical. But I find that the more that I show I'm a human too, I'm not necessarily like more evolved or better able to handle life and stress, and I get triggered and I have a family and like there's things that occur within me just like my clients. And the more that I've been able to share that, and that's why I say like authenticity is its own therapeutic intervention, they've been more vulnerable, they've opened up, they've felt less alone. And that took some risk and courage on my end. While I think overall the feedback, I haven't gotten any negative feedback about it. But what I've witnessed and seen in people and their own progress has been really valuable.
Yeah, I love that so much. And this is because true leadership awakens through moving through your own shit basically, and like true wisdom is the embodiment of the lessons that you receive on your journey, right? That's when someone has a magical healing power, is when they're walking the talk. It's not so much that magical, like everyone can experience it if everyone decided to actually stop, putting on a mask and putting on a show and just being their true authentic self. And what I wanted to say as well is that I love to talk a lot about like new earth frequency, and I feel like this is the frequency of the new earth, is heart-centered leadership. So how do you know someone is actually in 5D, like new earth consciousness level? It's not anything fancy, because before getting here, like what I was seeing on the media, no one really like explained this to me. I couldn't have foreseen this, but now being in it, it's a state of being, of just being embodied and being like leading from heart and being connected to unconditional love. And that does not mean that you're always going to be in this like a high meditative state
Right.
and high vibrational state and always joyful. It's rather like accepting the full spectrum of your humanness. It's being able to merge the human with your higher self, because we're on earth to live an earthly life. We're not here to just like float around or be all positive all the time. We're here to experience the duality of everything, which shows up, like you said, in your relationship. Like if you stay all alone, if you're going to enclose yourself, or I don't know, live off grid in the mountains or something, then yeah, for some people that's their path. But I feel like
Yes.
we're here. Yeah, we're here because we're here to lead other people, aka just guide other people back home to themselves by us like walking the journey first. So being like a leader doesn't mean that you're gonna be like better than others, or that you're gonna be perfect, or that you don't have anything to move through yourself, because that's the image of leadership that we were shown in the old earth paradigm,
Right.
right? I'm perfect. I know better than you. I'm going to tell you how you should be and how everyone should be. And people just respected that kind of like wounded masculine leadership, while this is like more like a balanced feminine and masculine space of leadership. The feminine side being the rawness, the vulnerability, also the humility, the modesty. What is the saying that like the best teachers are the one who learn from their students too? I don't know why that just came through for me as well, because yeah, like you're saying, for me too, like having one-on-one clients has always been a healing experience for me too. And people always reflect back to me too. I've been able to see myself through others that I was guiding, and I've received guidance, maybe not directly, but through like exploring the dynamic and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I am proud of you and of me and of us for like
Me too.
cracking this code,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I really love it. Everything that you just shared really, really resonates and feels so true in my body. Like, I don't think I've ever felt
Hmm.
so attuned and connected to this heart-led leadership. I've had people say, Amanda, you're so heart-led. And I've even said, I don't want to be, I never said leader, but I said like supervisor. And then I ended up being a supervisor in a job and I didn't like it. And I felt like I never had models of people that were good leaders. The leaders in my life, I always ended up having frustrations with, or things that I saw that I was kind of like, that's not how I want to be, which could still be a model because it showed me, like you said, like the old ways of leadership is what I was seeing in them. And I was kind of like, well, then who is a leader that I want to follow, or that I want to model in. And it really came to the realization of I can be my own leader. And through that, I can just naturally lead, not by trying to get people to follow me, but simply by trusting self. And like you said, being vulnerable, having that humility, but also the courage, the confidence, the healthy masculine and the healthy feminine coming together within myself. And like you shared within you, that's this new earth D way of leading and embodying the divine and our humanness, or the earthly physical form together. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and being a new earth leader also is not just about leading like on a big scale, because
Mhm.
for some people it's like you could be the leader within your family, within your small circle. When you start to embody this frequency, even in the most subtle of ways, people around you start to shift. And you can see that it may take a little bit of time. I feel like everyone who would be listening to this is a new earth leader. And maybe you would not like believe that about yourself because you see it as something super fancy or big. But it's just about, like you said, it's just about you embodying you and existing from the frequency of like everything that we're describing, and then that will naturally just invite others around you. Maybe sometimes it could be chaotic, like for me personally, I bring this like chaos disruptive energy in these like tower moments in people's lives, and a lot of the time I find they make people uncomfortable in the changes, and it's like
Sure.
quick and rapid. For others it's more like you bring people into a softening of their heart, and like it's gentle, and the only way to uncover that is by being you. Like, there's no other way. You gotta be you. Like, you just gotta be your most unfiltered, most authentic self. And that's where the importance of embracing all the parts of you come, because that's the only way as well that you can allow the unfolding of
Mhm.
the new you. But it's also, the other day when I was recording a podcast with Cassandra, she was like, it's not about becoming someone else, it's about becoming who you are not.
Mm.
Yeah, that was so deep that like I lost where I was going with it. But I feel like I was touching into this point of like how we can merge the version of ourselves that we are becoming by loving all that we are unbecoming. Oh my God, does that make sense? It's like by loving all the parts of ourselves that we want to change, that we want to like bring back into the wholeness and bring back into the positivity and the love and the light. Yeah. Like, I hope this is gonna make sense when I re listen to it, because when I'm in a state of like just channeling, I'm
Just
like, what?
channeling, yes, just channeling it through. It's like you know what you mean and what you're saying, and you're feeling it. What I'm getting is the becoming who you are is also what is a remembering. Like it already exists in you. It's bringing it back up and loving that again because maybe it's been rejected, right? So for maybe someone who, poetry was something that I did as a kid and then I didn't do it for years and then it came back and I needed to kind of nurture that muscle again and remember how much I loved poetry. But in order for me to get back into poetry, I had to kind of unbecome the version of me that would plan, that was organized, that was rigid. I had to kind of let go of some of these traits that I thought were so necessary or that were so celebrated and praised in order to let more of like that
Mm,
wildness, creative, flowing, sensual, darker aspects of self come back because that's what was then put into my poetry, but also has always been something in me that I love those dark parts and I think they carry a lot of value to my life and to my being. So it was like a remembering, but also allowing and becoming that again, and then also letting some of the other traits just soften. So it's not a full like I'm getting rid of them, but they're there too in a lighter way.
I just had a realization. I just had something come through when you were talking, is that bringing back those parts into wholeness also means that expressing that darkness and expressing anything that is not ultimately like love and light in favor of the love and light.
Yeah.
So I'm so connected to my dark feminine, and I have such a like a dark feminine expression. But so when I was expressing it not in favor of my highest good and the highest good, it was, that kind of rebellion that was like the smoking and the drinking and the doing all those things that are unhealthy, just
Yeah.
being in like my untamed dark feminine. But I brought her back into wholeness. And now, when I've given her all the love that she needed, now I'm using that part of me to actually help me in even like guiding others and like having what I was just saying. So, like the catalyst, disruptive, chaotic energy that
Hmm.
comes from my
Hmm.
dark feminine,
Hmm.
So,
Yes, and and that's you leading you. So I think that goes back into what you said, coming into your own awakened, authentic leadership doesn't have to be this big, I'm leading hundreds of people in some sort of way, but it's your highest self having that connection with you and leading you and the parts of you further into wholeness or into the next decisions, into the aligned guided action and inspiration, that you can be your own leader just by being in your authenticity and in that leadership. You'll come to grow maybe into a greater scale and maybe not, but just being open to the unknown with that. Like you said, people who are listening to this are here because it resonates and because that level of awakened authentic leadership is meant for them.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love that you said that because I didn't know I was going to be leading people. I didn't know that I was going to have this platform and do all these things. It started by me leading me. And I feel like that is such a beautiful way to bring this into a close. I cannot believe how time flew by in this conversation.
We just went with
Wow,
it.
wow. This was like such an incredible conversation that I didn't even feel time go by. So, thank you everyone for tuning in and thank you Amanda for bringing your medicine here into this space and sharing your light. I literally felt the transmutation of whatever I was holding on to before recording this. This was such an alchemical session. I felt the energies just shift.
Before we started recording, we had talked about right, release and surrender. And I think the way we do that is through the alchemical, right? It's not like just a throwing it away. It's the alchemical transmutation of something within you that is ready to shift into higher form within self. I felt that too.
Yeah, beautiful. Oh my God. Thank you so much for joining me here. It was such an honor and a pleasure. And I'd love to hear any feedback from anyone watching. If this conversation stirred something within you, I'm so open to hear your thoughts and emotions and reflections if you have any. Make sure to check out the description box below. I will be putting the links to stay in touch with Amanda or to stay in touch with me if this is the first time that you're connecting with me as well. And I'm sending everyone so much love and light, and I hope to see you again soon.
Same here. Thank you.